Happy Thursday, happy Thursday, happy Thursday. Happy Thursday. It is Therapy Thursday. It is another Transforming Trauma with Dr. Triffy. I'm your host, Dr. Triffy. I'm a psychologist, hypnotherapist, author. Hmm. I like to tell people that the work I do, when people ask me, what work do you do? Like last week, I was driving through the Panera drive through, and somebody said, what do you do? What work do you do? I said, I heal broken hearts. Hmm. And then we go into a conversation about how psychology is about healing broken hearts for those hearts that are ready to heal. Because sometimes the hearts aren't ready to heal. But if the heart is ready to heal, sometimes we can use this underestimated, overlooked, underprescribed medication, perhaps the best of all time, laughter. I'm talking about laughter tonight. I'm talking about the healing power of humor tonight. I'm talking about giggles. I'm talking about belly laughs. I'm talking about snorts like I'm talking about laughing till you cry. I'm talking about rolling on the floor. I'm talking about laughing till your ribs feel like they're about to pop. Yeah, like that. I call it sacred foolery, the tomfoolery of it all. Now, clearly, I say clearly because I think you can already begin to sense that I love to laugh. If you grew up with me, you already know that about me. People who follow me, they've seen me laugh till I cry. I laugh till I cry. Laughing is fun, but a lot of us have been shamed for it. I know what I'm talking about because I'm a laugher in chief. I know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Some of us have been shamed for laughing at life, for laughing at ourselves, laughing at other people, laughing at other people. You know, I think for some of us, somewhere along the line, in school, in church, they get popped on the knuckles for laughing and giggling. Some of us, I think, came to believe that laughter was dangerous. Hmm? As if we needed to be serious people, professionals. Aren't you a doctor? What kind of doctor is that? I've heard that before. Hmm? What kind of adult is that? That's inappropriate. I think some of us, laughter became a trigger um, for ridicule and maybe for rejection. Yeah, people were like, you're an idiot. You're a fool. You do too much. Yeah, you're stupid. And perhaps they didn't just say it as if they were teasing us, because that can be funny too when somebody's teasing you and calling you, you're such a fool, right? Tone and intention. You can feel the energy behind people's words. Yeah, that matters and that makes a difference. But I think sometimes we felt it as if people were serious about us being foolish because we were laughing, or idiots because we were laughing at things perhaps they didn't think we needed to be laughing at. And sometimes those words can stick and they can echo in your mind. And some of us, we are ruminators. So we leave situations like that where people say things to us and we go and we're just thinking about it, thinking about it, thinking about it. Did I really laugh too much? Was that too much? Am I too extra? Well, I think tonight you need to sit with me. And whenever you come up on this video, sit with me and let's talk about laughter as a healing tool. Think about it, y'all. If you're a reader, if you've read the classics, if you grew up in the Caribbean like me, I sound the way I do because I grew up on the tiny Caribbean island of Dominica. If you grew up in the Caribbean, if you grew up in certain communities, laughter is a big deal. Laughter is a beautiful thing. Think about literature. The figure of the fool appears in many cultures around the world. In European traditions, you have medieval court jesters who that was their job. That was their job, and perhaps nobody else could, but the fool or the jester could mock the king. Hmm? So they could criticize the powerful, under the guise of humor. So their role was not just entertainment, they were also able to speak truth to power using their humor and talking about people who most people were afraid of because they were afraid of the repercussions. In the tarot deck, there is a fool, and the fool in the tarot deck represents new beginnings, innocence. Think about that, innocence, spontaneity, joie de vivre, yeah, the joy of life, and the journey of the soul. In African and Caribbean cultures, who does not know about Anansi? Who doesn't know about Anansi the spider? Hmm? Who uses his just humorous bone, his wit, his cunning, his slyness, yeah, to fool people. And sometimes he himself is the fool. Yeah. So Anansi though is a character of wisdom. So there was always a lesson at the end of Anansi's stories, but it came with disruption. It came with causing chaos, madness, and mayhem. Okay, in Dominica we have during Carnival what we call a papi show wedding. The papi show wedding is a pretend wedding, a mock wedding where people dress up foolishly, right? In the most bizarre costume, clown like character, outfit to invert social roles and to mock authority and to celebrate freedom through satire and humor and dance and fun. Okay, so in tons of other cultures, all right, you have the idea of a sacred clown who acts in ways that most of us, the prim and proper, might not. They might laugh when other people are crying. In Native American traditions, in the Lakota tribe, there's a sacred clown who rides backwards on a horse to provoke reflection and healing. And that's a role that is spiritual and important and powerful. Yeah. In Jungian psychology, there is a fool archetype or a trickster, and that archetype represents chaos. It represents creativity, shaking things up, and breaking new boundaries. And that is essential for growth. That's essential for individuation. Individuation is you're establishing yourself as separate from your tribe, from your group, from your family of origin. That is important, or else you stay enmeshed and tied to the blob, to the whole big thing. And so you might lose out on your uniqueness, your creativity. But again, in many societies, laughter has been shamed and suppressed. Sometimes laughing at yourself is seen as a weakness. Yeah, we call it self-deprecation. Deprecation is not the most highfalutin word. It's about like you're cutting yourself down a notch. We call laughing at others mean. I think sometimes it might be misunderstood as cruelty, um, even when it might not be meant for that purpose. And laughing in general can be punished depending on where you are, like in school or church or where other people might value seriousness and the button down, you know what I mean? Control and emotional repression. The trouble with repression of any sort, is that it can lead to trauma, especially in childhood when kids don't necessarily understand yet the rules of being a human being. They're just figuring out what it means to be you know, a person. Yeah, they're learning the rules of life. And joy and playfulness are ways, they're tools that kids use to learn. That's how we learn our environment. And many of us, as we go through trying to investigate, touching this, touching that, saying this, saying that, laughing at things adults think ought to be serious about, and we can get very hurt by that. So I think reclaiming laughter, especially through the fool archetype. In Dominica, our Creole word for fool is sot. So we have words like sotness. You're a sot. And you can use sot as a negative, but also a sot You're just laughing. Child, you sorted. Yeah. Like you're so silly. Right. So I think we need to reclaim laughter because being labeled in negative tones about laughing, when perhaps you might be meaning to enjoy yourself, can create conflict on the inside. Of course, like ambivalence. Do I need to be laughing? Is it okay to be happy? A lot of us, we perhaps walk through life with that feeling of, well, when's the next bad thing going to happen? Because I don't know if I need to enjoy this time where I have this little moment of peace, understanding that life is this, right? Life is up and down and up and down. And so if I'm going to be sad when I'm down, ought I not to be happy and joyful and laughing when I'm up? I think so. I think so. Okay. Uh, your body likes it when you laugh. The body likes it when we laugh. So, psychologically speaking, laughing is a biological miracle. You can think about it that way. When you laugh, your body releases endorphins, which are like nature's joy juice, right? A little sprinkle, sprinkle up in the air. Your cortisol levels drop. Cortisol rises when we're feeling stressed. And if we have cortisol in the body just from constant chronic stress, we can develop inflammation in the body. Many people theorize that inflammation is at the root cause of many illnesses. Okay, so we want to do things to drop our cortisol levels. So, laughing is like boosting your immune system if it's dropping your cortisol levels, isn't it? So, it's kind of like emotionally flexing, yeah, getting stronger somehow, building up your nervous system, rebooting your nervous system. And that again is important because trauma does what to the nervous system? It throws us off, it dysregulates us, dysregulates the body. Shaky hands, sweating, and you don't know why you're sweating. Your heart's pumping, and you don't know why because you didn't run, you didn't walk up a flight of stairs. But your body is misreading signals and thinking it needs to be in that state. Yeah. Cortisol is up when this is happening. So if laughter is a way to, that's kind of like giving your body an opportunity to turn off some of those signals that are keeping us in a state of stress and hypervigilance. So I got an invitation for you tonight. Perhaps you can pause. Look, my mind is already going to where it needs to go, just because I know the rest of what I'm going to ask, right? Think about the last time you laughed so hard your ribs hurt, or you probably snorted like stuff came out of your nostrils, yeah? Or you wheezed or you cried. Think about that. I can think about it. What night was it, y'all? Monday night? Tuesday night? I saw a picture on Facebook. Man, I had a time with that picture. I couldn't stop laughing. I felt like I was about to just, my bladder was about to burst. Yeah. But I felt so good. I felt so good. So I'm asking you to think about that. Think about the last time you laughed like that. Your nervous system was probably saying, thank you, boo. I know mine did. All right. So I think also humor is a way for us to survive. It's about survival too. Uh, for me personally, like I say, I've been a laugher all my life. I mean, in high school, I would be on the floor feeling like I'm about to pass out. Okay. Uh, Survival in the sense that sometimes if we don't break the seriousness of a situation, it's almost as if we might break. It's like the weight of the seriousness or the pain might be so heavy we could break. I'm using a Dominican or Caribbean example here again. How many of you have been at a funeral, like the saddest funeral, and they come to the part where they're lowering the coffin, If you're from Dominica, I know you can see it. They're lowering the coffin, and the community people, especially the men, they start shoveling dirt onto the coffin. Um, Almost every time, there's that one drunk man that says something completely out of the way, completely unrelated, but completely funny. And everybody just for a moment goes to laughing. So that your hearts are heavy, the tears are flowing, and yeah, you go back to crying, but just almost for a minute, there's going to be at almost every funeral that one person who says or does something just completely unrelated, you know, a crack a joke, and suddenly the place erupts in laughter, and you catch a little break, catch a little relief. So while that laughter does not erase the grief or take the pain away, just momentarily it holds it. It holds it. And it's like the group catches a little breath, and we remind ourselves that, yes, this is life. This is what we're doing here. We're human beings. We still have joy. Yeah. And sometimes those little moments, they open it up for the rest of the community that's grieving to start talking about the person who passed. They might say, "Oh, that just reminds me of XYZ about the person." Or they might say something like, "Oh, so and so must be laughing," or "We wish they were there with us laughing right now." So I think Caribbean people, especially, and I mean, because I grew up, uh, my formative years were in Dominica. So that's my rooting. I understand how to take many things for a joke. I can understand how to see the silly and the funny in many things as a survival skill. Yeah. In the community, in the villages, we would sit together in circles on moonlit nights and tell stories. And they're usually funny stories, some are Nancy stories, but in the culture, there are what we call tim tim bois shesh or tim tim bois sec, which are riddles, funny little riddles that you might say something like glossy span. What is glossy span? Glow is similar to l'eau, French word for water. Sispan is suspending in the air. So what is glossy span? And people would say, everybody make their little guess. The answer to that riddle, if I asked it to you in English, maybe you might type it in the chat. What is suspending water? What is water suspending? What is water that's in the air? Type it in the chat, and it's in a form of suspension. Type it in the chat because that's a tim tim boise, boisec or boisesh. Right? Bois is wood, shesh is dry. So that's just, I don't know the origin of that title for these kinds of stories, but that's how we call them. Another set of stories we have in the culture are called contes. Contes are longer stories, usually funny, usually with a lesson. Yeah. And so growing up, you really learned how to turn pain on its head and make everything foolish. Sometimes we do it so much though that we tell each other, or we've accused each other perhaps of laughing too much or taking everything for a joke. We do take everything for a joke. Maybe sometimes we go too far, where perhaps the things where we need to look at from a more serious lens, we turn it into a joke. Yeah. So let me give you another one of the tim tim bois shesh or tim tim bois sec. Glo du bout. Glo du bout. By the time you're finished with me, listen, you're going to know how to speak Creole, which is our people's language that they created during the forced trafficking of Africans from Africa, West Africa, to the Caribbean. So they created their language that they called Creole or Creole. So Glo du bout is from the French glo, debout, yeah, is to stand. What is water standing? Type it in the chat if you know. All right, so our communities, I just talked about trafficking of Africans. survived slavery, the transatlantic slave trade, yeah, watching your relatives fade in the distance, not knowing where you were going. Hmm? Some people jumping overboard, coming to work on a foreign place, having to work all day, somebody else telling you what to do. That's very painful stuff. So, learning how to live with that and to thrive in that demanded that we find the fool, find the idiot, find the salt in us, find our humor to help us heal from trauma. Okay, so even now, people say, "You can't take my joy, devil." Yeah, not today, Satan. Not today. All right. It's not denial. I don't think it's denial. I think it's resistance. I think it's, I refuse to give you or anything outside of me so much power that you take away my peace on the inside, that you take away my joy on the inside. I decide if I will have joy. And the world could be crashing outside of me. I choose joy and I choose to be happy. And I love that about Caribbean culture. So here's another question for you. What is the darkest season you've been through where a little bit of laughter snuck in, like a little mischievous angel, right? Like the funeral example, a little bit of laughter snuck in. I want you to think about it and maybe write it down. That's what I mean when I say sacred foolery. Okay? That's your soul, I think, saying, hey, we're still here. We still have tomorrow. Tomorrow is another day. You know, let's make it do what it do. Let's do our best and forget the rest. Yeah. Find a little thing to smile about. So I think uh the fun part, one of the fun parts of life for me has been identifying things to laugh about in the middle of hell, in the middle of absolute hell. Okay. So my invitation to you tonight is to invite that part of yourself in, like embrace it. Embrace it. If you're a sort, you're a sort. You know, understanding that nobody is everything. Sometimes I'm a sort, sometimes I'm the Dr. Triffy, right? Sometimes I'm a fool, sometimes I'm a jester, sometimes I'm an idiot, sometimes I'm a clown. Yeah. But but the rest of me has to understand the value of that, because in every culture, the fool plays a very sacred role, because they're the ones pointing out the truth for us in disguise. They're the ones that are bringing relief during the chaos when it seems like you're on a marathon of negativity. You know, like politically, you might be, as a country, as a society, experiencing a lot of pain. Sometimes you go through these cycles where it's just a long run of negativity and pain in the politics and the political systems. We need people who can poke fun at the leaders. We need people who can make the what seems to be unbearable bearable, even if it's just for a moment. Even if it's just for a moment. I think, I think we have to understand and learn how to use humor on purpose. When you've lived through trauma, please, I encourage you to be willing to laugh at yourself or to laugh at life. Yeah. I think that's brave. I think that's brave. You're not denying your pain, but you're saying you don't get to have the last word. I do. And I'm using my laughter to do it. So imagine making a terrible mistake. You know, say you have to do a public performance and you forget your lines, you forget what you were singing. Like in the calypso shows, you've seen many calypsonians and musicians forget what they had practiced for months and months and months and months. You know, you're giving a speech, you forget. Mind goes blank because your brain is so stressed out. You know, it just does a wipe out. It just short circuits on you. Hey, make a little joke, crack a little joke. Instead of bawling, ruminating on it, castigating yourself, calling yourself names, you're so foolish, you're so weak in that negative way, perhaps you can turn the fool part of yourself towards humor and say, Gaston, I saw tweet. What I just said is, boy, I'm a fool, eh? But foolish as in the funny side of foolishness versus I'm a real fool and I'm down on myself and I'm spending weeks and months replaying the mistake. Yeah. I am inviting you to break the tension for yourself in spite of what's being said to you or about you outside of you. Okay. All right. So let's bring humor and using humor to heal trauma home for a bit, like in relationships, in romantic relationships, in family relationships. Listen, if you are with a partner who does not know how to crack a joke, I'm sorry. Listen, because relationships can get very serious, right? They can hurt. But it sure helps when you have a person who can crack a joke, who is not just only looking at the serious side of stuff, who can say something, and even if we were miles apart, we can come together on a little laughter. The laughter can be a little duct tape to help us reconnect and re regulate. Our arguments can soften if somebody can crack a little joke. Our walls can come down. And perhaps suddenly the thing you were ready to, steam was coming out of your ears about, perhaps you can start laughing about it, and start imagining, well, hey, maybe we just in a bit of a sitcom here. We just saw it, but saw it on the playful side. We're foolish on the playful side versus you're a fool, and we go to name calling and like that really painful thing that happens in relationships. We have the power to turn it. We have the power to turn it around. Okay? So, how might you actually use humor in your life? I'm going to give you some strategies and I'm going to share some of your comments. Thank you all for joining me. Thank you all. Good night to you, Aaron. Winsty says, he reached, which is Dominican for I have arrived. Okay, I have arrived. And Aaron says he watches a lot of African comedies and watched one today. I bet you feel good right now. My sister Lenore is a happy Thursday, sis. How are you? Winsty said can. Winsty said, Winsty, so glow du boot is can, which is sugar cane. So imagine that sugar cane has water. Yeah, if you've ever eaten sugar cane, it's water, but it's standing water. And then suspended water is coconuts. Water in the air is coconuts. So here are some strategies. Here are some ways perhaps you can begin to use humor to heal yourself and to heal the people around you, to make things feel better. Just as Aaron said, watch a comedy special. Watch something funny. And you feel a spiral coming on. Some of us, we can feel when we're about to go down the rabbit hole into depression or our anxiety has taken over. We don't know where it came from. We just know right now my heart is beating very fast. I can't even remember what set it off. Yeah. Please go to Netflix, go to YouTube, go to some podcasts that you find funny, watch or listen to a comedy special. Maybe you can call your friend you know who's always cracking jokes and that person has you on the floor. Call that person. Maybe you can keep a funny file, where you have your memes and your videos and your silly stories that you can just pull out like medicine. Like, this is serious. I'm serious about this. Don't be afraid to be your own clown, to laugh, yeah, to wear funny, silly socks. Like, I'm telling myself, sometimes I'll wear different color socks, like mismatched socks, just so I can feel like a little weirdo. It's just my little thing, right? I don't think we need to take ourselves so seriously because I learned early in life that life can do this. And that was one of my responses to trauma. Yeah, understanding that life can change very quickly on a dime, like from one moment to the next moment. So this is a before and this is an after. The only difference is one event here when you heard something really terrible, like really terrible news. Yeah. So I understand that at a very deep level. And so I think early on I decided I'm going to enjoy the time I have. So try your best to do what you need to do that is serious and has to be done. But develop an approach is my encouragement to you about it, where you realize this stuff is passing, it's temporal, it's time limited, including this experience you're having of life. It's time limited, yo. None of us is getting out of here alive. This is time limited. You understand? There's an expiration date on this stuff that we're doing. Seriously. So I just, for a long time, have thought, why will I walk around only focused on what's generating pain in my body? No. Whatever it is that's painful, I will find something to try to ease that pain. And I will feel the pain of it, yes, but I won't only feel the pain of it. Okay? So when you give yourself permission to be a sort, eh, to engage in sortness, to bring the fool out, to bring the idiot out from inside of you, you're also giving yourself permission to be free, to live free. Yeah. So if you're at home, have a comedy night with your kids and your partner and your family. Talk about the silly, funny things that happened. Every family has their treasure trove of memories where, when one of the babies was this old, they did something that everybody was on the floor laughing about. Yeah, bring that up in the middle of an argument. Bring that up when your 14-year-old, 15-year-old starts acting like you don't even know who they are. Remind them, hey, that was you doing that. Yeah. Okay. Share your funny stories at dinner time. The bills are due. You're like this. Worrying about it is not going to make the bills come undue. But I promise you, if you crack a little joke, you might feel a little better. You might feel a little better. Nothing changed about the bills. So you feeling horrible about it wouldn't have changed it either. But your body would change because your cortisol levels would drop if you cracked a little jokety joke. Okay? Let's suppose you're the one running meetings. In your next meeting, share your most embarrassing moment. Yeah. So vulnerability, transparency, plus laughter. I mean, that builds trust and intimacy. Sometimes you can use card games to help you do it. There's some games that have prompts on it, and you can use it and ask questions and just do new things together. So, what I want you to remember is that laughing at trauma does not mean you're dismissing it. No, you're just looking at it from a different perspective. You're just turning it around a little bit. Like I said, the bills, they won't disappear just because you laughed at them. But your body will feel different if you laugh at them. Yeah? And you get to do that. So I think it's a way to reclaim your power over situations that are always going to be showing up and popping up. One here, one there, the other one that you were not looking for or expecting. But the constant is you and what you do with it. So trauma says, I have come to control you. And your laughter can say, not today, Satan. Not today. Okay? So, how about tonight, before you go to bed, or after you listen to me, perhaps you ask yourself, what was one funny, absolutely ridiculous, or light-hearted thing that happened today or this week? For me, I was at work today. I had a lot on my plate today, but I must have been finished writing some notes or something like that. And my mind went back to sitting right here, laughing until I cried after seeing a particular picture on social media. Yeah, it's still cracking me up. It's been cracking me up all week, and I appreciate it. Yeah. So tonight, before bed, ask yourself, what was one funny, perhaps absolutely ridiculous or lighthearted thing that happened this week, that happened today? And let that be your way you end today, regardless of what else is happening. Yeah? So let your day, you decide, you let your day end in laughter instead of worry, because you can. Because you can. So here's your takeaway for tonight. All of you who showed up and shared your thoughts, let your takeaway for tonight be an understanding that laughter is sacred. It's a beautiful gift that we've been given to help us navigate this life that we're living. Yeah, it's a way to deal with pain, trauma, stress. It's a way to rebel. It's a way to survive. It's a way to heal. It's a way to connect. Yeah. And that foolery, tomfoolery, can be wisdom. Tomfoolery can be wisdom, like the conte stories can be wisdom, like the Anansi stories. They can be wisdom. So I'm challenging you this week to laugh on purpose. Go find it, look for it, create it. Let your laughter, let it now. You let your laughter remind you that no matter what it is you have been through or experienced or lived through, those events, they've happened already. Yes. But who is still here? You're still here. You are still here. You're still breathing, and you're still capable of creating joy. So, trauma might want to shrink us and shut us down and close us off. And people in our lives who want to take over us, some people are very controlling and systems are very controlling. They might want us to get smaller so they can get bigger. But I'm going to tell you, your laughter is going to expand you. Okay? And you're not being silly for the sake of being silly, but you're remembering that you're strong and that you can choose how you will perceive, how you will look at situations, and what you will do in response to situations, whatever the situation is. So I'm Dr. Triffy. Happy Thursday. If this session resonated with you, let me know in the chat. Share it with a friend. Maybe somebody who could use a good laugh today. And just remember that healing is not just hard work, it can also be joyful work. Oh, like Cardi B say, happy Thursday. Nous que parler l'autre fois. What I just said is, we will talk another time. Peace.